Hey everybody, coming at you live, post-service on the first night of National Youth Convention 2021, and what a service it was. Pastor Josh Wilson absolutely brought it tonight, and I feel a little conflicted because here we are starting our live webcast, and the Crusaders webcast is probably still going right now. So those of you that are joining us, thank you for jumping. Glad to have you with us. A great start to conference, and want to introduce you. Some of you may know, and some may not know, but Pastor Smith is joining us, and I feel like I know the man through Twitter.
Yeah.
As long as he stays positioned the exact way as his Twitter avatar, I'm in good shape. I know exactly who he is. But if you're not on Twitter all the time, maybe you don't know who Pastor Smith is, but he is the newly appointed ministry director for the Tennessee district, I believe. And just why don't you take a few moments to introduce yourself and let our audience get to know you a little bit better.
Okay. Well, I pastor in Germantown, Tennessee. I've been there almost 5 years. Before that, my wife and I started the church in the New York City Metro, Westchester Church, in Westchester County. Before that, we were in West Memphis, Arkansas. So that's I'm a Memphis boy, kind of full circle.
Awesome. Man, well, I'm sorry you're from Arkansas, but it's okay.
Well, okay.
Being from Tennessee, we'll claim the Tennessee part.
Well, yeah. We call the Hogs.
Amen. But
Yeah, man, great to have you here. We as Brother it's really weird. I'm kind of dealing with some weirdness too, because I'm realizing this is one of the first times, man, you've ever just been this close and actually having just a lengthy discussion. We've texted some, communicated, but it's amazing how technology does that. It just kind of like, you know somebody, you respond to their messages, you retweet them, but then here you are. So
you know the good part.
Yes, that's the highlights.
What you want others to know.
Absolutely.
Not everybody's Twitter feed's good parts.
This is true.
So congratulations on yours being good.
This is true.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring you on just to kind of introduce you to folks on our podcast. This is, as Brother Comer mentioned, this is our newly appointed district ministry director for the state of Tennessee. Great district there. That's actually my home district.
Really?
Yeah, I was born and raised in West Tennessee.
Okay.
So I'm very familiar with those parts, and just heard wonderful things about you, Brother Smith, from, I'll just name the names from Brother Josh Wilson, and others just go on and on about what a great guy you are, and we're so thankful to have you. I think the first time I met you, I think it was at headquarters. You popped in on maybe a Let's Talk or a meeting or something, and we got to meet. So.
Right. Yes, absolutely. I think it was a board meeting, and Galen Walters was doing a training
That's
session.
right.
I got to sneak in for that.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. So we've been, with this podcast, we're discussing just, all things men's ministry, advice for men, dads, young men. We just try to cover it all. So this is our second installment for being here at the conference. So give us a little bit of history. We talked to some guys earlier about men's ministry, like maybe the first time you experienced a men's conference, or so just tell us a little bit about your history with men's ministry as far back as you can remember.
Absolutely. Well, I was connected with the Arkansas district, the UPC in Arkansas, and their men's conference is still phenomenal.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, as a youth pastor, people would ask me, what is the most important youth ministry event you do all year?
Yeah.
And I would tell them men's conference.
Wow.
And they would look at me like I had two heads. Young people don't go. No, they don't go. But every Sunday night after men's conference, we would baptize young people who had never really moved, prayed young people through, all because Dad went and got on fire. And so men's ministry is so significant. I think as the men go, so go the church. And that's
absolutely.
not always the story in churches, but men are so valuable. And I think traditionally, we've had to work to make the church a safe place for men.
That's good.
Because God wants us to be men, totally given to Him, not emasculated versions of who we are.
Right.
And so God celebrates that. And I think it's very valuable when you have men who are good at business, good at relationships, and good at prayer, good at worship in their way. It makes things work.
Yeah.
It makes things work.
So what we were talking earlier about messages, men's conference messages.
Yeah.
You know, do you have one that just, you know, really stands out that impacted your life?
Yeah, there are several, but recently I heard Jerry Dean at a men's conference preach a message and simply ask the question, do you want to be like Jesus? And he kind of set everybody up and said, don't answer too quickly.
Yeah.
And he preached about Jesus was a friend of sinners. And he just really nailed us on that. So how many sinners do you know? I mean, how many sinners are you really friends with?
Wow.
And it was just a life-changing, challenging message. Because I know a lot of people who are Christians, but as far as a friend of sinners, it's an area I'm growing.
Wow.
Anthony Mangun years ago preached a message about a nail in the sure place.
Yeah.
It's a great message.
Oh, phenomenal. We laugh for years as young preachers because when he gets at the end of the message, he just looks at the men and says, men, the altar. That's his altar call, and they run to the altar. And so we laughed like, well, I tried that Sunday night.
That, it didn't work.
Yeah, they said, your point is?
Yeah.
What's it got to do with us?
Yeah, that's right.
Nail in a Sure Place is an awesome message.
What year was that preached?
It's on. I don't know what year. It's on mine.
Yeah.
Is it?
It would be worth Googling and finding.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Great.
I remember the message we played at men's conference. Brother Comer, you might remember this. We started one conference by playing a message.
Clips from a lot of different messages.
Do what?
Clips from a lot of different messages.
Yeah, there was. No, there was a message that Brother Mangun preached. Something about the world. It had signs, but I remember one. It was in the old building at FAC, but it was so powerful. I mean, it really was. It's kind of interesting to start a conference off by a video message, but we basically just kind of backed up the start time and played it. But it was
it
was
the
fantastic.
fashion of this world
That's
passeth
it.
away?
That's it. That's the one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Brother Carpenter wanted.
Newly married.
Yeah, congratulations. So with your appointment now, I mean, I don't know. It's funny. The more guys we talk to, sometimes it's a shock. You know, sometimes you wasn't even really planning about it, thinking about it, and then sometimes it's one of those scenarios that it's something you really had a heart for. Wanted so tell us a little bit about the Tennessee district, what you're thinking. I mean, I'm sure you're still just kind of finding your feet. You know, we've had a couple conversations. I sent you some information, but so tell us a little bit about Tennessee and maybe what to look for, in the Tennessee district soon.
Well, I'm in the shock category.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming. Matter of fact, I thought somebody else was the men's director.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to doing a men's conference. We're looking at that, sitting down with the district superintendent, planning that out.
Super.
Getting men involved. We've had a couple of men's conferences, I think, before I became connected with the Tennessee district.
Right.
Nate Whitman.
That's right.
No, Batson.
Yes.
Nathan Batson did those.
Right.
And one of them was phenomenal here, and we're looking forward to getting that started, hopefully in the fall.
Super. So, Brother Comer mentioned this earlier. You are a great tweeter. Got a great tweeting presence.
Yeah, I'm a twit.
Oh, absolutely. Very quality. I know you're well read, and we're going to bring Brother Comer on. Brother Whitley on here just a little bit. We're going to talk about resources, but I want to talk to you as well. Like, what do you recommend? Men that are listening right now. You got any books on your radar that you would just highlight and would suggest that men should go out and buy?
I am a huge fan of Mark Batterson.
Me too.
Like all of his books, and all of them are good. Several of them are grand slams, and to me, Play the Man is one of the grand slam books.
Yeah,
just phenomenal. Anybody that's kind of in the midlife crisis time period, I hit mine early, and I read the intro to Stephen Alderman's book on midlife crisis, and just the intro, I'm like, I'm good, and that's a lot cheaper than a gold chain, a blonde, and a Corvette. I'm good. I can move on. And the intro, what it said was that midlife crisis is a new thing.
Yeah.
When people only lived to 50, they didn't have a midlife crisis, and so it really is all about shifting from what you can do to what you can invest in the next generation.
Gotcha.
So I can do that. So But Play the Man, phenomenal.
Oh, yeah, it's a great book.
Phenomenal book.
Is that the one where he talks about his son and doing these almost like tests, like pushing themselves?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. It's a great book. Years ago, Wild at Heart.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one, too.
Very, very good book.
That's a very good.
John
Eldridge.
Yes. Very, very good book. Talking about wounds that are given by dads.
That's right.
I forget what I was reading recently, talked about a ministry decided to give cards, Mother's Day cards to inmates. And
I know
they
the book.
just, what book was it?
That's the fatherhood principle.
Yeah.
Miles Monroe.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
And
passed away in a plane crash.
Yeah. And so they gave all the cards they could away. They tried to do it for Father's Day, and they had no takers.
That's right.
At all. Because
Not one.
fatherhood wounds are so deep. And as a father of 3 boys, you don't want to hit that right. And you got to challenge them. You got to correct them.
Wow.
But you don't want to do unnecessary.
Well, I feel like I'm doing pretty good. I've been in those books.
Yeah.
Those are really good. And yeah, I remember that story. The Miles Monroe book, The Fatherhood Principle. I think that was my first book that I read when we found out Tori was going to be born, or after she's born. I read that book, and it was just gut-wrenching, really. And I remember that story. I've actually used that in a couple sermons and teaching about that nun who done all those cards, and it was just a great success with moms.
Right.
But there wasn't one in that whole penitentiary that wanted to have anything to do with any communication with his dad.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
Well, being a dad of 3 boys, so am I.
Yeah.
And I've got
It's
3
only
girls.
3?
Who knows? Honestly, you kind of lose track.
Yeah. Depends on what day it is.
I thought it was 7. Seriously, I thought it was
might
like that
be.
number.
Once you're outnumbered, it's just like, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's raising boys too.
Oh, that's true.
3 boys.
Oh, wow.
What would be your advice? Like, if you could give one piece of advice
Good.
to another dad, having been through what you've been through, what would your piece of advice be?
You know, the one thing, and man, we all make so many mistakes, but one thing that works for us is every quarter I do something with each one of the boys
Separately.
by themselves.
I see.
And it does. I let them choose. We talk about. I give them a whole list. There's things on the list that they've never chosen to do, but some just different things. It doesn't have to be expensive.
That's great.
One of them, the 12-year-old, it doesn't matter as long as one pizzeria is involved. He didn't care what we do, as long as we go to that pizzeria. And there's never an agenda, but boy, there's some connection, and that's when you talk about things,
that's
and they start opening up, and they love it. They call it Day Out with Dad, and it's a big deal for them. They actually
That's
forced
solid
me to do it with
advice.
My wife as well, which we should have done that a long time ago. So once a quarter, we're doing a date, if you will, but they still call it, it's a Day Out with Dad, huh? And so that's awesome. The other thing is, man, confess your wrongs.
There you go.
They know it.
Hear it, man.
They know it, and it doesn't make them think less of you.
That's right.
It makes them think more of you. Now, Stephen Covey had a great line. You can't keep talking your way out of things you keep backing your way into.
Say it again.
Say that one more time.
You can't keep talking your way out of things you keep acting your way into.
Man.
So if you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again, that confession doesn't do any good. But and every once in a while, because I'm kind of tough on my boys. Like, all right, guys, you need to straighten up.
Yeah.
I'll stop and say, what areas do I need to straighten up?
Yeah.
And they'll tell me. And they've never been wrong, never been mean-spirited. I don't think I'm mean-spirited when I'm saying, hey, you need to shape up a little bit. And I try. And I'm so messed up. You're just trying to be the best. I don't know that we could be great dads, but we can be better dads.
Oh man, that's good.
What I like about that is, and I try to do this. I'm not sure I've got it down, but grow in front of them.
Yeah.
Grow in front of them.
Absolutely.
And that takes having a little bit of confession about where you're growing.
Well, and to us, ministry and life are not disconnected. They're a whole lot connected in what I do ministerially. I will, going home Sunday, every Sunday, so I had to do. And I'm a glutton for punishment with a 20-year-old, 6-year-old, 12-year-old. I want to know, did I connect with them? And then sometimes, even before, look, I'm trying to get this point across. How would I get that point across? Or I'm struggling with this title. And get in their world where the life and ministry are not disconnected. We're one.
That's great. Yeah, I'm outnumbered. I've got girls. I'm a girl dad. So I love it. I love it. But so that's solid, man.
It is.
That's solid advice. You
I
do
love that
something.
quote.
So what do you? I mean, let's pass it down. We've got, a couple more minutes here, brother. But let's pass it down to you. What advice would you give, Brother Comer? That's a great question.
It'd probably be to grow in front of them.
That's
Yeah.
great. I love
I
that.
think, my oldest is 19,
Yeah.
and he was kind of my case study.
Firstborns always are.
I did all the wrong with him, But no, try to grow in front of them, and then I do something similar with not once a quarter, but I try to take a small trip with each one of them.
Good.
I can't do each one every year, but
Yeah,
this last year was with my youngest, and we actually went to Myrtle Beach, and we played putt-putt twice every day the entire time we were there. It was miserably hot. I hated it, but he loved it,
You'll never forget.
and it was great memories.
Yeah.
I try to grow in front of them. That would be my best advice.
Yeah. Well, hanging out with him, who was it? I think it was John Quincy Adams that wrote in his journal. Maybe he went fishing with his son. It's one of the Adams. And he said, went fishing with my son, worst day. He was like, and then his son wrote in the journal, went fishing with my dad, best day of my life.
Wow.
It's just huge, And years ago as a youth pastor, we just kind of tripped up on this. I asked the young people, like, what's your favorite memory with your family? So I was a youth pastor for like 10 years. And their memory was not a Christmas gift, not a birthday gift. Every one of them was a trip with their family, a vacation, something of that nature. So, in youth ministry, after about 4 or 5 years of cycle, whole new group of young people, I try to begin without ever telling them that was the answer. That was the same answer. So my wife and I just made that a priority. Again, it doesn't have to be expensive. It could be, I had a mentor that talked about the value of getting a tent. My wife's idea of camping is Hampton Inn, so that never worked for us. but it doesn't have to be expensive.
Sure.
But spending time alone with them or as a family is so huge that they won't forget.
Thank you.
If I could add something, I just kind of thought of.
Yeah.
Because and I shared this with Brother Chester on a more personal level, but this just happened recently.
Yeah.
It was an area I think I learned. My boys are connected to their mother in a totally different way than me.
Oh, absolutely.
And so it's important to ask her how I'm doing with them.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
Because they share
Brave.
things with her.
Oh,
Brave.
Well, it was because, she shared something that was tough to deal with
Yeah,
that I had to make a change in. But finding out from her,
Yeah.
It's so good.
because I can feel like a great dad, I'm doing a lot of great stuff, but when you ask that question,
Yeah.
the truth's coming.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
That's right. That's right. But we all have those blind spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Brother Smith, thank you so much.
Well,
We
thank you.
really appreciate your time.
Yes, sir.
And I have the honor of being able to say, I feel like a late night talk show host right now. If you like Brother Smith, you can hear more of him this Sunday at Faith Apostolic Church.
Coming your way.
Faith Apostolic Church in Carmel. Watch the live stream Sunday morning at 11 o'clock, and you'll get to catch the ministry of Brother Smith. Looking forward to being with you in service.
We're looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
bless
Thank you. We appreciate you, brother. Here's a gift from us.
Awesome. Come on now. Love it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
God bless.
So we're going to transition here. We have Pastor Nate Whitley coming up next here in just a second. They're going to swap places. While they're doing that, I'll just make the appeal that if you're watching,
Yes.
you can help us out by sharing
Please.
this Facebook post or YouTube link or Twitter post. You can help us out tremendously by sharing that. So thank you so much for joining us. Love Pastor Whitley. He's associate pastor of First Apostolic Church in Knoxville, Tennessee. He's also an accomplished speaker, author, podcast host, a prolific content creator. He also happens to be my friend. I'm thankful for that more than anything. So, Pastor Whitley, glad you could join us. You are always creating something, which is
Yes.
what I love about you. You just
Absolutely.
always have some wheel turning, some idea. And what I've loved is here lately, you've been creating these series of graphics that have advice, or they're just little punches in the nose of things like
Little
Pop
jab.
shots.
Yeah.
Wipe my nose.
leadership isn't found in a title.
Blue blood.
All right.
Yeah. So
Take that.
tell me a little bit about the process. Do you have just like, is this the kind of thing that's an output of you journaling and you just flip through and you have like
Very
1,000
close.
of these ideas? Tell us a little bit about the creation process.
So, I've had a website for probably 10 years that you were a part of early on in the conception of that. And you came to Knoxville and helped us rebrand First Apostolic Church. We redid our website, our logo, all of that. And you came in and you talked to our multimedia staff in a session. Do you remember that? It was like a Monday night or something like that. Something that you said stuck out to me. So it was like this epiphany. You said you have to be where the people are. And I got no traffic to my website, so I would write, I put all my sermon notes on my website, so everything I preach I put on there. Thoughts, ideas, I've always put it on there. And I get no readership there. Like, I get like a couple people, and that was it. And so I realized I got to go to where people are, and these thoughts that may not necessarily be a good blog post, but they could be a good, quote, graphic of some sort. And so I just, it's constantly me kind of thinking it, writing it out, and how can I kind of give that to people and put it out there in that space where people are. And for some reason, like it's kind of taking on a life of its own.
Man, it's phenomenal content.
Absolutely.
If you're watching right now, I got to tell you, you need to pull up Pastor Whitley's Facebook page, Instagram account, and follow if you're not already.
And get a helmet.
I assume you are. Yeah, absolutely.
Strap a helmet on.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, I'm interested. We had a little discussion here before service start, and it's kind of a little bit off script, but you were the guy, the secretary, the previous conference 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so now you're here. You and Brother Josh is kind of
really awesome.
Tell us about it.
I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm just kind of like just walking around. I'm like, do you need me to do something? Actually, I'm not asking anybody that because I don't want to. So it's kind, it's weird. It's weird kind of being this. For 8 years we did it. Wes was a part of that.
That's
team.
right.
And it was just, I loved it, enjoyed it. So it's kind of different from this angle. For the first time, I told my wife it's the first time in probably 15 years I've not done something at an NYC. I think we're doing a young ministers deal on Friday, but like this is like not doing something. I feel kind of weird, but I also kind of like I really like it. I like sitting with my wife.
Oh yeah,
I like being able to be a part of the service and being preached to. And what an outstanding sermon we heard tonight.
Oh, absolutely. Great move. Such a hunger. It's a powerful service. So you're in the same boat, bro.
Oh man, yeah, loving life. You're involved for so long, and aging is weird.
It's very
My oldest son turns 20 in January, and I'm just not ready.
Yeah.
And so I finally understand that even so come quickly, Lord Jesus verse, oh, okay, this is aging. I woke up this morning and everything hurt for no other reason than I was walking through the hotel.
Yeah.
And that's a new season of life.
Yeah, we started a few years ago this year at our church called a ministry called Adultish. My wife and I started that 18 to 30, and they're doing this that's kind of taken on its life of its own. The Crusaders took on the name, they took on the branding that actually Isaiah, your 20-year-old, created for us. And so I told them, I couldn't apply for the AirPods that they're giving away, the watches that they're giving away. I said, so I'm going to start a ministry this week called Oldish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's for 40 and over. Oldish.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, Brother Whitley, we're very excited and thankful you joined with us tonight. Looking forward to men's conference.
Man.
I mean, that is just...
Is it ever going to get here? I'm just I'm ready.
Brother Jones, he stopped me a while ago. He was supposed to preach the last NYC and got canceled. So I was like, man, that thing's been marinating. It's going to come apart very nicely. So we're excited about you preaching. So, when you think about men's conferences, how important is it? How important is it for men to get to men's conference? What kind of impact does it have on them?
I think it's very important. I don't think I've missed one since I've been in Knoxville. So since we've been having them, and they're so important. I think of that sermon David Akers preached, "I Know a Man." I think that's probably the most famous sermon at men's conference.
Out of the mouth of two witnesses.
Yeah, I think that was a pinnacle moment. I think a pinnacle moment for our men's ministry here. And so I think it's very important. I think it's God's raising up some men who are tired of letting their wives lead them spiritually. I think there's a generation of men who are like, let's go, let's lead. And I think this conference that we've had has been the catalyst for that.
That sounds familiar, that message.
Yeah. We discussed it earlier.
Yeah.
Pre-service.
I know a man.
Yeah,
He told me about it. He told me about that thought, what Akers did, before he preached it.
Yeah.
And then the whole series of events of how he preached that.
I know.
Like he wasn't supposed to preach that conference, right? And then they asked him like in the last minute, and he had that. And
right.
He knew, like, yeah, that's just one of those moments. That's a God moment that you'll never forget.
That's nice. It's interesting hearing you say that because the interview that we did previous, it was basically like described the same way. I think it was you that said it's like the marker message that everybody remembered kind of launched us into it.
It's the foundation that all the conferences after have kind of built on. That was what made people go, oh man, ministry conference is real. It's
Absolutely.
really good. Yeah.
And it was just, the memory that I have with that, it's not just what he preached, but how he preached it.
Yeah.
We said this earlier, so if you're hearing this again, we apologize, but that vulnerability that he brought really just unlocked something in that conference for a guy like himself to get up and own some things.
I'm going to preach a sermon this year called A Man That I Know.
I like it.
Sounds like a good book title.
I'm just going to take his sermon and re-preach it. A Man That I Know. Sorry. Guys, it is past my bedtime, and I get a little loopy about this time of night, and I'm an hour behind my regular schedule, so
I hear you.
I go ahead and apologize.
No, that's cool, man. We're glad you're...
Speaking of book titles, I see that you've got one in your hot little hands there, or right in front of you.
Yeah.
We talked about your content creation, prolific author, man. I don't know if this is like book number 500. Why don't you tell us about the latest release?
So, there's a pastor in Bloomington, Indiana, my hometown, Pastor Rob Akers. He started a school, Covenant Christian School, and I got connected to him through that. And he and his church have a conference every year in the fall called Bread of Life. And he said, he came to me with the concept. He said, we're really good in our movement of preaching the Old Testament. He's like, but we're terrible about preaching the New Testament letters.
I agree.
And he said,
I agree.
So I want to have a conference that we teach through the New Testament letters. So last year I taught through Colossians. That book will be here tomorrow morning. And then this year I taught through Hebrews. And so it's 3 nights, and we it's like a classroom setting. And I teach through a book. So it's chapter by chapter, section by section of each chapter. An overview of the book and a few little things, little outlines, maybe to help you study it and see this book as it is and the depth of it. And it's pretty amazing what the writer of Hebrews was talking about. I think it's very relevant to us today as 21st century Christians.
So what for folks watching, listening, you got your booth. They can go over there. You've got copies of this and then copies of the Colossian work coming tomorrow. Yeah,
so I got these in today. It's my first time holding that in my hand. Is today. It's the first time I got to hold it.
Nice.
And actually, Isaiah Comer also helped me. I had the idea for the concept, and Isaiah helped me flesh it out.
So really, I designed that cover 20 years ago.
So in the loins of Wes Comer, this book, it's like Levi paying tithes in Abraham. Yeah. So
you're welcome.
You're welcome, everybody. And it's basically Bishop Walls' content, Wes's cover, and I'm just here collecting the tithe from it. So you can get it at my booth. You can get it at my booth. I got my books there. You can go on to Amazon, get the Kindle version, and get the paperback version as well.
You know it's good when Melchizedek is in one of the chapter titles.
So I got a whole chapter. So when I first moved to Knoxville, you get a lot of good questions from Bible students over the years. You get a lot of weird questions.
Yeah.
Did Adam have a belly button? And so this one sweet lady came to me.
Can we hear that one more time?
Brother Nate, did Adam have a belly button? So sorry. And I told you it's late. And so she came up to me and she said, she goes, I have a Bible question. You're thinking something, whatever. And she goes, who was Melchizedek? And I was like, I wrote about it in a book. So that's basically a whole deal on Melchizedek, which is an important part of Hebrews. So you can pick all that up there. $10 each of those. Actually, I had a school teacher teach this in a Christian school this year.
Sweet.
It has a study guide involved with it too. So if you have a study guide, great for small groups, youth classes, anything like that.
The thing that I love the most about your writing, whether it's in blog form or kind of the short form content, for lack of a better term, like the magazine Bible study you did, or this book, is that it's always significant. There are sometimes you read a book and like by the time you finish it, you're just, like it's like you ate a piece of candy. There's just not much to it. Yeah. But every time I read something that you've written, I walk away going, man, I need to read that again, because there's just so many things that I can pull out of that. I'm so thankful for that. And so if you're watching, can you tell people again, you said Amazon, but then your website, can you tell us your website address?
You can go to nswhitley.com and find all my stuff there as well. You can follow the links. I'm trying to get everybody to go to Amazon because they're just printing everything for me there anyway. That's why I was late this week. But yeah, that you can find it all there too. And I appreciate that. I want to give back. I want our generation, our age group, and the younger generation to be able to come to the scriptures and learn something from it like I do. And I feel compelled to give that to others as it comes to me. And so hopefully it's a blessing to those who read it and partake.
Sorry, we were being visited by police officers, so we had to
got our
pause
attention.
and wave.
Wasn't me.
I feel like I'm sorry. Do you have a question?
No, you're good.
I was just going to ask, what is your favorite book ever?
Favorite book of the Bible or favorite book?
Favorite book.
Man, I don't have a favorite book. I've got favorite books. It's hard for me to probably just pick one that I would say like this is my favorite. This is my favorite one. I love, and I'll probably say this too. It's probably also favorite authors, are where I'm at.
See that.
John Piper. I know he's not everybody's flavor.
I like John Piper.
Desiring God was a pivotal book for me. That book that he wrote, that one's always there. Future Grace that he wrote. Future Grace is
Brothers, We Are Not Professionals.
Brothers, We Are Not Professionals.
Yeah.
It is a stake in the heart. Those are books that stand out to me. Next Generation Leader, Andy Stanley, was one of those books early on that really kind of was pivotal in the shape of my ministry. I think instead of saying here's my favorite book, mine's more like the charcuterie board. Like here's my favorite authors, and here's where you could start. And I think that's kind of how I view books in a sense. And Brother Gill taught me something many years ago, was you have to recognize the season. Not every book that you have is season.
So true.
And there's books that are in season for you, and that will stay with you. And then you look back and you go, man, I remember that season when I read that book. Yeah. And like that, Future Grace was that one for me. Like there was a season I needed that. And so I just think you have to recognize the season. And I'll be honest with you, like this year, my favorite books have all been fictional. That's the season I'm in, and it's really I fell in love with that, and I needed that. I needed my brain to rest after a year we had and all the things. So that's kind of how I view a favorite book.
That's a pretty good answer. Mine's the Bible.
Always that one guy.
Brother Wes, what's your favorite? It's the Bible.
King James.
It's the King James.
No, I love that answer though, and not just because you use the word charcuterie to refer to what but it really is true. I feel like I've dominated the conversation here.
No, it's good.
I really like the part you said about seasons.
No, that's
Because I mean, ordering your private world for me changed my life. But looking back, it's a perfect season.
Yeah.
And it was almost like I felt compelled to I locked myself in my office one day and just read until I couldn't read anymore.
Yeah.
I was in that moment where I needed that. I love that answer. Season.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that there is like, it's like literary timing. I mean, it really is. I've heard that what Brother Gill said in different ways before, and even understood it myself.
Yeah.
That, because I mean, I can admit, early on in ministry, you think of God speaking to you, you're always thinking audible voice, or at least that's me, to my fault. That was the way I kept thinking, He's going to speak it to my mind, going to speak it this way, and I'm going to get it this way. And it took me some time to realize that God, obviously speaks directly through His Word. And then what I've realized lately, what you're saying, is sometimes, man, you can pick up a book that's like it just walks in that season of your life, and then sometimes it's not there. Brother Mancino, one of our mutual friends, one of the things that he says, if the book's not doing anything for you, close it.
Put it down.
Pick it back up later.
Yeah, just set it aside. And I've experienced a time that one that I put aside, it wasn't that time, and then I go back to it, and it's in that. It's in that time.
The other one that comes to mind with that season, Dangerous Calling by Paul David Tripp.
Yeah.
That came out about 8 years ago, I think it was. And that's dynamite. It's a book you don't want to, you better have, it's not for kid gloves. It's just, it comes out like, it gets you. It's a great book. That one was a timing thing for me. I think if you understand the season that you're in, that's when you go. Hey, somebody will email me and say, "Hey, you recommend some books? Do you recommend?" I'm like, well, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I can't help you if you don't know.
That's so good.
If you don't know what tool you need, I can't point you to the shed and say, "Well, go pick one out." I think you have to be able to know the season, the job, the task. And I don't buy books. I buy books if they're cheap. But I also buy books because I may not need it right now, but there might be a moment where the job calls for that, and so I have it. And so then it's the season, and I think you have to be able, it's just knowing where you're at, gauge yourself, take your temperature, and then be able to.
So what are some books directed toward men, that's had an impact on you, or maybe some that you would refer to?
Man. Emotions by T.D. Jakes was really good.
Wow.
Back in the day. That was a really good one. T.D. Jakes, I'm going to tell y'all, he's a fantastic preacher. He's a wordsmith.
Yeah.
He is a wordsmith.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a really good one. What was there was another one, I'm trying to think. Integrity Crisis by Warren Wiersbe was a really good one.
Oh, man.
That's a good one.
I need to write that down. I haven't heard of that one.
That's a good one.
Love Wiersbe, though.
What was the? I'm trying to think. My brain. I'm sorry. This late at night, my brain goes to mush. The Batterson book, Play the Man.
Yeah.
Was
an echo.
That's a really good one too.
Brother Smith just recommended that one. That's a great book.
Have you read Broken American Male?
Broken American Male by Rabbi Shmuley.
Yeah.
Or however you say his name. That was really.
That's the way I say
really
it.
good. Yeah. I think again. Wherever you are, if you're a minister, whether you're a dad, I'd say a great men's book that's not directed towards men. Again, Paul David Tripp is parenting. The book he wrote on parenting was life-changing for me. Right before my little girl was born, that was a book that really helped me out. He talked about the difference. We talk about law and grace. He said law and grace. He said if you're always a law with your kids, they're never going to know what grace is like. He said that's the same thing with how Christ has treated us. He said if God is always law with us, we're going to never know grace. He said they should know grace just as much as they know law. And that right there was just like,
man, that's great.
Like, it just blew my mind. And Tripp's that way. Paul Tripp's a fantastic writer. I think anything that instrument in the hands of God, any of his books, I highly recommend.
I love that book. I'm glad you mentioned that Broken American Male. That's probably one of the early books for me, and I think Brother Jerry Dean recommended that book. I think he was the one that recommended that book there for a while. But fantastic, really gave me a deeper understanding, within the nature of man, So what about you, Brother Comer? What are some manly books?
The Bible is a really manly book
This
that
guy.
I like to read.
This guy.
Judges.
Proverbs.
Hebrews.
Don't forget Proverbs.
Yeah.
It's okay you
That's
don't
the
read
best
any man.
answer I can come up with.
Sports
No, I'll tell
Illustrated.
you the book that I'll tell you the book that I read every year. It's probably my favorite book, and I don't know why really. It's probably one of those season things, but it's the biography of John Adams
Oh yeah.
by David McCullough.
That's a
I
great
read
one.
it just about every year, maybe not every year, but just about every year. And there's just so much to pull from the life of John Adams. I mean, all of the forefathers, like unbelievable lives. But as inspiration for a father, like
Yeah.
how to interact with your son, how
Right.
to check your own spirit against ambition and pride, it's just a.
I tell you, one I read at the beginning of this year by Doris Kearns Goodwin, or Goodwin Kearns, whoever her name is. She wrote Leadership in Times of Crisis. She wrote the book on Lincoln and his cabinet. It was based on the movie Lincoln. Anyway, she wrote a book called Leadership in Times of Crisis, and she looks at leadership from my brain, guys. LBJ, Roosevelt, Lincoln, and it's absolute. It was fantastic, and it looked at the crisis in the context of their life and how they led, and I think that's a great book for men as well.
Excellent. I feel kind of prompted to ask you something. So
Did Adam have?
you haven't answered that yet, by the way. There's probably somebody out there wanting to know what your
Brother Whitman?
official theological position on the Adams navel.
No comment. I have no idea. It's not in the Bible. I really don't care.
But you wrote the incredible book, The Spiritual Disciplines. Well, that was your first book, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Just an incredible book. Definitely a book. If a man's wanting to grab something off the shelf to help better his life, that would definitely be one. And I know you wrote a lot about prayer. And in episodes like this, like what we're trying to accomplish here, what do you say to a man who's trying? He's got a job, raising the family, torn in so many directions. What do you offer a man concerning prayer? Doesn't feel like he's attached like he needs to be. What are some practical things that maybe work for you? That you would tell a man?
So I would answer that a few ways. Number one, I think it's everyday consistency. And I want to step on some toes, those who might be tuning in right now, and probably upset some people. But I've talked about it elsewhere, so I'm not ashamed to talk about it again. We have mystified prayer in our movement.
Oh yeah.
And what I mean by that is that we've got prayer conferences, we've got books on prayer. I wrote one, and all this stuff, like you're going to see angels.
Come on.
You're going to have angel dust and feathers show up, and you're going to do all these things. And then so a man goes to pray, doesn't have it. He goes, well, forget it. What's
There
the
you
point?
go.
I
don't have the experience that's been promoted.
Doesn't have this weird
Right.
thing that and I think they feel we have done a grave disservice to our movement with that people feel like they can't reach that prayer has got to be this otherworldly thing that God never required of us. Elijah was a man of like passions. What were his passions? Giving up, quitting, giving in, wanting to kill himself.
Good.
That's giving. A man of like passions.
Man,
yes,
that's good.
yes. Did he call down fire? Yes, but he's a man of like passions.
Preaching that.
But like he prayed efficiently,
Yeah.
consistently, that and authentically.
Yeah.
So I think a man needs to be faithful every day to prayer, whether the angel shows up or not,
Amen.
whether he speaks in tongues. I'll
That's
be honest
good.
with you, I don't speak in
good.
tongues every time I go to pray. I hope that's
No,
not
me
like
ne-
weird.
No, me
but,
either.
But I think, but anyway, that's another story on gifts of the Spirit. But I think there are men who are like, I don't feel like I have that, so they don't do it.
Right.
And I think if you just show up and say and pray
Yes.
as a man prays, a man of like passions, and you're consistent with it. And I think our heroes, our spiritual heroes, are more normal than we really realize. I think they have bad days. I think they don't pray a lot. I think they miss Bible reading. I think they mess up. All the things, and we've got them up
Kill
here.
the feed.
Fire,
Kill the feed.
bro.
Kill the
Yeah,
feed.
yeah. And so,
This is
but
fire.
I think our heroes are as normal as they really are, and I think it's okay. I think it's okay to be normal.
Absolutely.
And let's not give into carnality and give into and just kind of giving into that. But I think we need to realize it's okay to be normal. But the issue is, I'm going to show up again tomorrow. I'm going to show up again on the next day, the next week, and give yourself to consistency more than the mysticism. And I think you'll be way more effective in prayer life.
Go
was
ahead.
great.
I want to say something, but I think we need a couple more. Go
Well, I
ahead.
was just going to say, like, I had an epiphany in prayer years ago, and I used to feel that way, that prayer had to be this super spiritual, levitating above the ground kind of experience.
Yeah.
And I had a moment where I was in the hospital. It was during an NYC week. I was supposed to be here in Nashville at NYC. Instead, it was at Vanderbilt Hospital. And, like, brain leaking. You're welcome. And, and like, I won't go into all the details, but we were just really up against it. Like, I had done all the planning, preparing, had saved, done all the things, but we were just up against it. And it was one of those prayers where I took my wife's hand, and literally I said, Lord, and I shrugged, Lord, we've done everything we can, and now it's up to you. And it was the most immediate answer I've ever gotten in prayer, because the nurse came in, made me take a walk around the floor. By the time we got back to the room, there was a note stuck on the door that had the answer to our prayer in it. And it was an epiphany in prayer that God is like, why don't you just talk to me like that more often?
Yeah.
Right? I don't need all the grandiose. Anyway, you probably have something way more profound to say.
No. What do you think, Brother
Just
Wilkes?
maybe to tag on to that, and
great.
what Brother Whitley said, when we've mystified prayer and all the descriptions he gave of it, that's a hard place for some men to go,
Yeah.
and they don't relate to that, but they do relate to shrugging their shoulders and saying, "God, you know."
Yeah.
And I love that. And the other thing I would say about teaching men to just be faithful about it,
Yeah.
men learn to be faithful, whether it's young, playing Little League,
Yes.
or the first time they learn to punch the clock at a job. Men get up and do the same thing every day. They are faithful. And they can do that. And I love that. That was great stuff, Brother Will.
Yeah,
Great stuff.
that was fiery content, bro. It reminded me, and I'm glad that you said this about the expectation, because I don't think we understand that we do that sometimes by telling those one moments, those not normal moments, but we project them in a way that that's the expectation. And who would, when men already, most men, from what I understand, already battle feeling like a failure. I mean, that's just kind of like that. I think Batterson talks about that, or Eldridge in his book about men being wounded like that. And so, when you already feel defeated,
You don't want to do it.
the angels ain't coming.
No.
You're not going to speak in tongues, and so you have all this built in, and that's why that's fantastic. It reminded me of my grandmother told a story one time of a lady that was praying for the Holy Ghost, and in those times they were very cautious about telling people they got the Holy Ghost and understand where they were coming from. So they really just waited for that person to say they got it.
Right.
Well, my grandmother had prayed with a woman, and all this was happening. And my grandmother had a conversation with her. It's like, well, hey, what's going on? And she's like, I don't feel the clouds.
Yeah.
She said, I don't feel the clouds. And my grandmother's like, what are you talking about? And she goes, I heard someone testify that when you get the Holy Ghost, you will feel like you're in the clouds. And that hadn't happened to me. And my grandmother said, well, have you spoken tongues? She said, yeah, I've been doing that for months.
Yeah. I think you got it.
My wife tells my kids all the time with Bible quizzing, over the years, our kids have memorized probably thousands of scripture at this point. And almost every day she says, repetition is our secret weapon.
Yeah.
And the same is true in prayer. Repetition is our secret weapon. The more we do it, the better we get.
Show up.
And I think Pastor Whitley's wife is going to actually drag him off camera in just a moment.
Yeah.
If we don't let him go.
Let me go back and answer that question further. They continued steadfastly
Yeah.
Yeah.
in doctrine, in prayer and in breaking of bread. And I preached a message years ago called Steadfast in the Ordinary.
Yeah.
And I think
That's
sometimes we need to stick with the ordinary things of prayer and, faithful house attendance, the Lord's house, and reading scripture. It's just showing up, man. It's showing up. It's like going to the gym. If you don't show up, it's not going to work. But sometimes it's just showing up.
Absolutely.
You might just get 5 minutes in, but I showed up.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of men need to go is, hey, just show up. Just show up. And I'll tell you what, something that happened to me kind of similar to Wes was, going to prayer, I don't feel anything. There's times I don't feel anything. But the Lord told me, I feel like he told me, he's like, if you'll just keep showing up, I'll keep meeting you there. And
Wow.
I felt like one time I went to my office at my house, and he was like, I've been waiting.
Yeah.
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 And that for me was like, okay,
Yeah.
I just got to show up.
Right.
He's there. I just got to show up.
Absolutely.
So I think that's to encourage men, just show up.
Amen.
Excellent. Man, excellent.
I can't think of a better way to end.
Altar.
Amen.
Let's go
Yeah, we
steadfast
should-
and eat.
This podcast was longer than the message today. So thank
Thank you, Brother Josh.
you. Speaking of repetition is our secret weapon, we're going to be right back here tomorrow. So before the general session tomorrow morning, after general session tomorrow morning, and then in the evening, of course. So can't wait to meet with you again tomorrow. God bless you. Thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us tonight. And, of course, to Pastor Whitley. So God
you for
bless
having me.
everybody.